today I wanted to chat through 5 things that you can track that will help you lose fat and build muscle easier and faster. And these things can also just generally transform your health. You guys know me, I'm a nerd. I love the science and I love data. The more data you have, the more precise you can be, and therefore the more efficiently you can get results. So I want to just dive straight into this, but before I do just want to say that I know tracking is not for everyone. I love it. It's a lot of fun for me. I like treating my body like my own mini science experiment and just doing things, looking at the data and changing things accordingly. But tracking is not necessarily good for everyone. For a lot of people, it can have a negative impact on your relationship with health. So if you're someone who tends to get a little bit obsessive over the numbers, or if you see numbers, it starts to make you obsessive with things that you're doing, then this might not be for you, and that's okay. Having the data can only make this process more efficient if seeing the data is useful for you. If seeing the data instead causes you to binge on food or do other things that are going to negatively affect your health or your relationship with your body, then clearly it isn't actually going to be the most effective way. So if you start tracking and you start to feel uneasy about it, or if it's starting to cause you to have behaviors that you otherwise would not consider healthy, then maybe take a step back. Stop tracking, it's okay. So with that disclaimer out of the way, let's get straight into it. If you're excited, give this video a big thumbs up, hit that little subscribe button, and without further ado, the first thing that I recommend tracking is nutrition. Starting with the one that most people are familiar with to get it out of the way, but also because it actually is like one of the best things you can do. And I want to divide tracking nutrition into 2 things. 1, tracking macros, but 2, tracking veggies. Let's start with tracking macros. I see this as a extremely educational tool. If you've never tracked before and you start tracking, you're gonna learn so much about what you're putting in your body. And it's really hard to change what you're putting in your body if you aren't very aware of what's going into your body. So tracking can just generate that awareness that's needed to start making slow, steady shifts. Tracking will not only teach you what your normal average intake is like, but also what foods have more carbs, fats, or proteins. It can teach you how different foods make you feel, and it can teach you how different macro ratios make you feel. And you can use this information to change things to help you get to your goals. So if you know what your normal average macro intake is like, maybe you can see that you are under eating protein for your goals, and so you can consciously add more protein to your diet. Or, you know, if you're resistance training, really trying to build muscle, maybe you're under eating carbs and you can see that you need to increase your carb intake. You can also start to shift your eating habits to just make yourself feel as good as possible. Like, completely aesthetics aside, just get yourself feeling healthy, energetic, happy, good digestion, etc. After a couple weeks of consistent tracking, you might realize that, you know, when you start your day with a lower carb breakfast and then you have like some carbs for a snack and then you have a giant dinner with a ton of protein, you feel amazing. But on days where you start with a ton of carbs and then have a lower carb dinner or whatever, you feel a little bit lethargic, maybe your digestion isn't as good. So if you notice these patterns, you can start to actively choose to eat the way that you know is going to make you feel better. And then I really wanted to include tracking veggies in tracking nutrition too, because I have realized the more I work with clients, the more I've seen that people can be on point with their macros and still not be getting quality nutrition in their bodies. If you aren't actively trying to eat more vegetables, you'd be surprised at how little vegetables actually can make it into your diet sometimes. There's a chance you go multiple days on end without eating any vegetables. Vegetables are your vitamins. They're there to support your body and support your health. And if you're not eating any, unless you're one of the people that severely reacts to like all vegetables and it's probably not a good idea to eat them, but let's just ignore that. If you're the average person, you're not eating any vegetables, you are depriving your body of key things that it needs to function properly. I'm gonna challenge all of you watching to do this. For the next week, just track how many total cups of vegetables you eat per day on average. It's probably gonna be a lot less than you think. If you've never tracked macros before, I actually have a full video on how to track macros. I also have a video on how to calculate your TDEE, or total daily energy expenditure, which is theoretically your maintenance calories. And then I have another video on how to calculate your perfect macros for your body. So like I was saying, using this data to figure out what the perfect macro ratio is, the one that makes you feel the best, that helps you train the hardest, that helps you sleep the best, etc. So I will link all of those videos down in the description box below. The next thing that I recommend tracking is your overall activity level throughout the day. If you've never tracked your steps or your activity level, you would be so surprised at how easy it is to just live a sedentary lifestyle without realizing it. And here's the thing, if you are training an hour a day, going all out in the gym, but the rest of the time you're sitting, you're still living a sedentary lifestyle. That 1 hour workout doesn't make up for the other 23 hours of not moving. I mean, it helps a little, but like, does not make up for it. A sedentary lifestyle has numerous negative health effects, and it also is going to affect your physique. So if you're trying to lose fat or build muscle, a sedentary lifestyle is going to make that more difficult for you. The average goal that I like to set for myself and for most of my clients is aiming for about 60 minutes of activity spread out throughout the day, not including any like intentional workouts. My favorite way to do this is just to aim to hit 10,000 steps per day, because I know that it takes me about an hour to walk 10,000 steps. So I know if I've hit 10,000 steps by the end of the day, I've been active for about an hour throughout the day. But for those of you who live in places where it's not easy to walk, or winter's coming and you're gonna literally freeze to death if you take one step outside, another way to achieve this activity level is just to set like an alarm on your phone for every hour or 2 hours and get in like just 10 minutes of movement whenever it goes off. And this movement can be as simple as just standing up and stretching for a little bit, doing some body weight squats, walking lunges, some incline push-ups, just anything that's going to get your body moving. It doesn't have to be intense activity. Like, you don't have to do 10 minutes of burpees. Pace around your house, do a tiny little yoga flow, whatever feels good for you. I currently use my Oura Ring to track my steps, but the Apple Watch is really, really great. I don't have one, but from what I've seen, like the little rings that you have to fill in, I don't know how it works. It seems really cool. Fitbit, anything like that is gonna be really helpful in just giving you a bigger picture of how active you are throughout the day and giving you the data that you can work with and build on to build a more active lifestyle for yourself. The next thing is a big one that I don't see enough people doing, and this is tracking your workouts. The reason you need to be tracking your workouts is that progressive overload is fundamental. It is the key thing in being able to make progress in the gym, whether it be through losing fat or building muscle. Progressive overload is the principle that tells us that in order to keep progressing, we need to progressively increase the intensity of our workouts so that our body has something to constantly adapt to. This is adapting. That's the international hand signal. I have made a whole video about resistance training basics that goes in depth into how to apply progressive overload, so I will leave a link to that down in the description box below if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty, go through like actual examples that I have written out and stuff like that. But in short, with resistance training as an example, in order to apply progressive overload, that means that every time you lift, or close to every time you lift, you need to be increasing the total load that you are placing on your body. And this means increasing the weight, the reps, the sets, or decreasing the rest time. There's a few other ways to manipulate it, but like those are the basics. And so if you aren't tracking the weight, the reps, and the sets, and the rest time of your workout, it's impossible to know if you're increasing the load over time, i.e. applying progressive overload. And this is a mistake that I see so many people making, is every time they go to the gym, they just pick a random workout from Instagram or YouTube or somewhere, and they don't have a specific plan that they're following. So every workout is just different. They're kind of just going in there, getting their workout in, and hoping something changes. But if you're changing things up every single time, it's almost impossible to apply progressive overload. I cannot recommend enough following an actual program
that is programmed so that you can apply progressive overload.
If you're following a program, the workouts are changing literally every time, you're not applying progressive overload. Those kind of programs are great for like fun, for maintenance, but if you're trying to actively change your body, then your workouts should actually be kind of staying the same and just changing gradually, incrementally by applying progressive overload. So in short, get a program that basically is the same workouts week to week, or maybe is phased, so you're doing the same workouts for like a month to 2 months, and then you're changing it. And then as you do the workouts, track your reps, your sets, your weight, and your rest time. And then every week, when you go back to that workout you did the week before, try to add just a little bit to increase the total load for the workout. You need a good example of a workout program that does this really well, in my opinion. My program, Brains and Gains, is a phased workout program. The ebook explains exactly how to apply progressive overload as you go through the workout program. I'll link that down in the description box too. So those first 3 things to track, nutrition, activity, and your workouts, are they're the inputs. They're the things that you're actively doing and changing in order to change your body or your health. The next 2 things on this list are the outputs. The data that's really going to be telling you how what you're doing is actually affecting your body and how effectively you are making changes. These are the things that are going to tell you if the nutritional changes that you're making are actually helping or hurting your body. They're going to tell you if your activity level is helping or hurting your body. They're going to tell you if you're applying progressive overload too quickly or not. They're the things that are really going to help you tweak and refine your lifestyle and your diet choices in order to maximize results and maximize your health. The first thing you want to track as output data is your sleep. Every night while you're asleep, your body performs literal health miracles. A good night's sleep gives you enhanced immune function and disease resistance. It gives you energy and stamina. It helps you rebuild and repair your muscles. It improves weight loss and blood glucose regulation. It balances your hormones and stabilizes your mood. It improves your memory and mental clarity. Like, there's so many things that sleep accomplishes. And if you're looking to lose fat or build muscle, a good night's sleep makes all of the difference. You could be doing everything on point with your nutrition and your exercise, but if your sleep is compromised, man, you're gonna have a hard time. At the bare minimum with your sleep, I recommend tracking quality and quantity. So quantity, obviously, if you sleep 8 hours, track that you slept 8 hours, but rate your quality on a scale of 1 to 10, sad face to happy face, however you want to rate it. And within that, factor into things like whether or not you woke up in the middle of the night, how often you woke up in the middle of the night, whether or not you woke up feeling refreshed or super groggy. Also good to factor in your energy throughout the day. But if you can get a more advanced method of tracking your sleep, it's really helpful to have your resting heart rate, how much you were moving throughout the night, your heart rate variability, your temperature while you're asleep, and an idea of your sleep cycles. I use, again, my Oura Ring to track my sleep. This is basically what it's for, so it gives me all of that data and a really great breakdown of how my sleep was the previous night. If you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of sleep tracking, can't recommend the Oura Ring enough. I'm pretty sure the Apple Watch does a decent job, maybe the Fitbit. I don't know. There's a lot of sleep trackers you can get. And as I said, knowing your sleep quality can help you really pinpoint what changes you're making are working for you and aren't working for you. There's obviously a lot of different things that can affect sleep, but as a few examples, you know, if you start gradually pushing yourself harder and harder and harder in the gym and you notice your sleep quality declining, it's very likely that you might be overtraining. Or let's say you put yourself in a calorie deficit and your sleep quality tanks. You might be eating too little. Or maybe you went from averaging 5,000 steps a day to 10,000 steps a day, and now your sleep quality has also improved simultaneously. That's a sign that you're headed in the right direction with your activity. If you're working on changing your lifestyle, your exercise, your nutrition, etc., one thing at a time, which is generally what I recommend because that's kind of the most sustainable thing to do, then your sleep trends are going to be absolutely key in determining what's working for you. And the second data output to track is your menstrual cycle. If you have a uterus, your menstrual cycle can tell you so much about your health. Your period is literally your 5th vital sign. There's a reason why when you go into the doctor, one of the first questions that they ask you, one of the things that the nurse asks you before the doctor even comes in is, when was your last period? Here's the thing that most people don't tell you. If you are optimally healthy and have balanced hormones, you should not be experiencing negative symptoms that come with your menstrual cycle. Acne, cramps, fatigue, anxiety, all of those things are signs that something is a little out of balance in your body. And so using these symptoms as a gauge for whether or not what you're doing is working is really, really useful. Because if you make a change, let's say to your diet, and it makes your acne a lot better, then that's a sign that you're going in the right direction. If you start training in a certain way and your period's now 5 days late, or you start getting anxiety right before your period, then that's an indicator that that change might not be so good for your body. So I highly recommend tracking your cycle, not only like when you start your period so that you know when you're gonna get your next period, but track your symptoms too. The 2 apps that I've recently started using are Flow and Clue. I think I have a slight preference towards Clue just because there's more options to put in, but that remains to be seen. And if you want to get super precise with everything, Natural Cycles and Daisy are 2 really good options because they use your temperature to like get super precise with everything. But tracking your cycle and your symptoms within it is just, it's such a powerful tool. Not only as a litmus test or as like an output data thing so that you can see how other things are affecting it, but so that you can also just get more in tune with your body and eat and train according to where you are in your cycle. I have a whole video explaining how to eat and train with your menstrual cycle that I will link down in the description box below. There's some pretty mind-blowing information in that video, if I may say so myself. Like the fact that trying to be in a calorie deficit or train really intensely right before your period actually leads to a higher probability of storing fat. That kind of stuff is worth knowing. If you are a naturally cycling individual, I definitely recommend watching that video. If you're on hormonal birth control, unfortunately, tracking your cycle isn't going to give you nearly as much insight because hormonal birth control kind of just hijacks your hormones and it's not your natural hormones that you would be tracking. But that said, if you don't have a menstrual cycle either because you don't have a uterus or you have a uterus but don't have your menstrual cycle for whatever reason and you're not on hormonal birth control, then you can still use hormonal symptoms to kind of gauge how your body is reacting to things. So I'd recommend still paying attention to things like acne, libido, your energy throughout the day to kind of gauge where your hormones are at. So if you want to use data in order to lose fat and build muscle more effectively and efficiently, I recommend tracking your nutrition, your activity, and your workouts. And you can experiment with changing those inputs, and then as your output data, I recommend tracking your sleep and your menstrual cycle. But like I said, tracking is not for everyone, and there's no shame if you don't want to or can't track any of these things. I'm just a data nerd and I love the data and it's a lot of fun, and so I wanted to share these top 5 things that I personally love tracking. It is also definitely worth mentioning that we don't live in a lab, so even if you are tracking literally everything, you aren't gonna have, you know, perfectly scientific methodly good results because you're not in a lab. You can't control literally everything. Leave a comment down below and let me know if you have tracked any of these things, if you found it useful, or what your relationship is to tracking, if you find that personally it just is not helpful for you, or if you love it. I am interested in all opinions and insights. If you liked this video, please give it a big thumbs up because it really does support me and my channel. I really genuinely appreciate it. Please share this video with your friends, your family, and your neighbors. If you want to see more videos from me all about health and fitness, you can check them out over here. To see future videos from me, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the little notification bell so you get notified when I post a video, and I will see you very soon. Bye.